Good morning and welcome to another episode of Coffee and Tea with AARP, a biweekly conversation in which AARP staff and volunteers talk to Connecticut decision makers about policies and programs that are of interest to older adults. My name is Andrea Doroghazi and I am one of the policy directors at AARP Connecticut. I'm very pleased to be joined today by one of our great AARP Connecticut volunteers from West Haven, Meari Avery. In addition to being an AARP volunteer, Meari is also a nurse and has utilized paid family and medical leave in the past while caring for family members. Welcome, Meari.
Thanks so much, Anna. This is such an exciting topic and it's so pertinent right now.
Yeah, thank you. It is also my tremendous pleasure to introduce our special guest for today, Andrea Barton Reeves. Andrea is the Chief Executive Officer for Connecticut's Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Authority, which will provide Connecticut's workforce with access to paid family and medical leave benefits beginning in January of 2022. She is the former president and CEO of HARC Inc. And the immediate past president of the Connecticut Bar Foundation. She serves on numerous boards and has been recognized as one of the Hartford Business Journal's 40 Under 40 and 5 New Leaders to Watch. Andrea, thank you so much for making time in a very busy schedule to be with us today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here today.
Andrea, Anna mentioned that Connecticut workers will have access to paid family medical leave benefits beginning January 2022. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a bit about the basics of this paid family medical leave program, such as who's eligible, how much leave can they take, and importantly, too, how is this program funded?
Mm-hmm. So thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. So I can cover some of the basics of the paid leave program. It was passed in 2019 and signed into law by Governor Lamont. And what it does is it provides up to 12 weeks of paid leave, sometimes 14, depending on the circumstances, for women who encounter incapacitation during pregnancy. But it's really there to provide paid leave benefits, wage replacement, if a person needs to take time off to care for themselves or a loved one if they have a serious health condition. And that can include building your family through birth, adoption, or foster care. It can include being an organ or bone marrow donor. It can include caring for someone else who also has a serious health condition, as well as your own serious health condition. It also includes 2 components for military leave, because we have we are a military state. We know that. We know we've got a couple of bases here, submarine bases, and so we have quite a few families. And so, but if one of those families finds themselves a member of the military who's being deployed overseas, we have what's known as qualifying exigency leave, and time can be taken off to help that person put everything in order, childcare, property, and the like before they're deployed. Or if someone is injured in service to our country, someone can take time off to care for that individual if they were injured during active duty. And what's unique to Connecticut is that up to 12 days of leave can be taken if a person has taken leave under the Connecticut's Family Violence Leave Act. So that act provides for 12 days right now of unpaid leave if you are the victim of family violence. Under our new, when our law becomes active or in effect in 2022, you'll be able to actually take those 12 days and seek wage replacement from the Paid Leave Authority for that. So that's unique to our state, and I think just a huge benefit to families and victims who are struggling with all of the devastating impact of family violence. So how much you get is a rather convoluted formula that we don't have enough time for today, but suffice it to say that if you make equal to or less than the minimum wage, you essentially get 95% of your weekly pay. If you make more than that, it's a bit more of a complicated formula, but no one gets more than 60 times whatever the prevailing minimum wage is, regardless of what you make.
Okay.
Those are essentially the benefits and how the benefits are paid. And it's paid for by 0.5% that every person contributes to the Paid Leave Trust Fund. And that fund is held by the Office of the Treasurer. And we take that money and it's pooled, so it's not your individual account. It's really, it is what it sounds like. It's a huge fund. And it's from that fund that we actually pay those benefits. And it covers every employer that has 1 or more employees, except with a few exceptions that are in the statute. But it's just about everybody who works in the state.
Oh, that's wonderful. So it's a really comprehensive program. Everyone contributes a little so that, whether it's us, our colleagues, our friends and neighbors, if they run into a hard time, whether it's sickness, injury, family violence, during that difficult period, they have one less thing to worry about in terms of having access to a bit of extra money. So Meari, you had experience being a family caregiver in the past, and you utilized family and medical leave during that time in your life. Could you tell us a bit about that experience and what it meant to you personally to have the kind of workplace flexibility that more Connecticut residents are going to have starting in January?
Yeah, I first used family medical leave when I took care of my husband post-surgically. And I was blessed to be working for the state of Connecticut. So it was a large enough organization that it qualified. Actually, let me backtrack. In 1993, when they passed that, federally, state agencies did have to give that, but private did not. It was based on how many employees you had. Now this is going to give more. But I was really lucky to be able to work intermittently, meaning that I could go to work a half a day, and then go to the ICU to be with my husband. Being able to do that really took a lot of stress from worrying. I knew that I could be productive at work. I could concentrate at work, knowing every day I would be there. So I think that that's the benefit to the employer too, knowing that, because life happens and things happen and you can't predict it's going to happen. Who knew that he was going to need this surgery? I didn't know. No, he didn't know. So yeah, it was very, very helpful. And I used it again with my mother. With my mother who had dementia, it was different. So I actually was able to move in to take care of her, but I still had to work. However, intermittent family medical leave allowed me to go to doctor's appointments with her, take her to tests, consult, go visit a facility when she did finally need that. It allowed me the flexibility to do that and to feel that I could be a good family member, a good daughter, a good wife, do the things that you want to do to help your family. Because the truth is, generally, family caregivers give the best care because people trust us. My husband trusted me, obviously. My mother trusted me. So that's the best kind of care. So I feel that family medical leave is so important. And I'm so happy to know that people will be able to access this great benefit. Back to you.
Yeah, so, Andrea, Meari mentioned that the paid family and medical leave that she had, which I assume was either employer-based or federal FMLA, which is unpaid. But can you speak just a little bit to how Connecticut's family leave program is going to interact with existing programs like the one that Meari was able to take advantage of and, federal FMLA?
Sure. And to Mary's point, we've had family and medical leave forever, right? Since 1993, but it's always been unpaid. So while a person may have worked and been eligible for it, you couldn't access it because you couldn't afford to take the time off. There are very few people who would have 12, 13, 26 weeks of either pay time off that's accrued at their employer or the equivalent of the savings of their income in order to be able to actually access the benefit. So then you end up making these really draconian decisions about whether or not you're going to be at the hospital by your loved one's bedside or whether you're going to go to work because you can't do both because you don't have the resources. So the federal law will remain in place. We obviously, as a state, don't have any jurisdiction over the federal law, and that still requires you to work 1,250 hours for your employer and a year before you can actually even be eligible for family and medical leave, and then you get 12 weeks in a 12-month period, and that remains unpaid. But something might be changing there, so we're watching that carefully. On the state side, If you were to take family and medical leave today, your leave would also be unpaid. But just a few months from now, come January 2022, the law will change in two respects. One of which is you will no longer have to work 1,000 hours in 1 year for your employer to even be eligible for Connecticut family and medical leave anymore. It'll be 3 months and no hours worked requirement at all. And what's even more important at that 3-month period is you have what's known as job protection. And a lot of people aren't even aware of this. So if you were to take time off now and you hadn't worked for your employer long enough, when you came back from family and medical leave or some kind of leave that was other than that, your employer could terminate your employment and you don't really have any recourse because you've exhausted all of your time and you didn't have any protections. And a year can be a long time to work in one place, if you have a lot of challenges, transportation and childcare, a lot of things that people in our state are contending with in order to maintain employment. What's good about the change in the law is that not only will the 3-month period apply and a person will have job protection after 3 months, they will also then be able to access their paid leave benefit. And that's up for a 12-week period in a 12 weeks in a 12-month period. And then they will also be able to not, how can I put this differently? They won't have to make these really difficult decisions anymore about whether or not they need to be at the hospital with their children. And this is a true example of people that I had worked with at one point, where there was a mom that worked second shift and she was going to work instead of being at the ICU, with her infant because she couldn't afford to take the time off. She qualified for family and medical leave with job protection because she'd worked there for a year and she'd worked the requisite number of hours, but she couldn't afford to do it. So now this will have both sides. We'll have the job protection with far fewer months in order to be able to qualify for that, and you'll have wage replacement. And this will bring enormous dignity to people who are making really, let's just face it, truly undignified, draconian choices about living their lives, working and taking care of their families.
Wonderful. And I love that word dignity is so important to just how this program is oriented and what it's going to mean for people of all ages who either need to provide or receive care or take care of themselves. So one, kind of to this point of dignity, I think one of the really important features of Connecticut's paid family and medical leave program, and something that really sets us apart from programs we've seen in other states, is how the program and how the legislation that led to the program defines a family member. So could you tell us a little bit about under Connecticut's program, who is considered a family member and why this is different and why it's important?
Yeah. So Connecticut has and this will start in 2022, it will have an expansive definition of family that includes something called related by affinity. So that means that it can be a parent, a sibling, a child, and it can also include people who you consider to be family, but with whom you have no biological or legal connection. So often, as an example, I use a couple that has been living together for quite some time. They're not legally married, right? They don't have a union that is recognized by the state because they haven't gotten a license. They haven't been married, but they own property together. They've raised children together. They consider each other their spouses, and people choose not to marry for many reasons. I say this all the time. Oprah's never been married, so this isn't something that you necessarily have to do. Right? We do it traditionally, right? But it isn't a necessity. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a recognition that that person's partner is not their family. And families come in many, many different forms. So this expanded relationship or relationship by affinity allows that recognition that families are formed in many different ways, and that when the time comes for you to care for someone who is your family that may not have been traditionally recognized as family, we should be able to take that time and care for that person who may have taken us in and raised us when our families put us out because we came out, right? Because we made different choices that our biological families may not have approved of, so we had to go build our own family. That doesn't mean that those people are loved any less and mean anything less to you. And when they are sick or they need help, your help and support, this this change in the law will allow you now to be able to do for them what you would do for any family member. And it's extraordinary. And we're excited and really proud to be able to offer that.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, it is so extraordinary. My background is as a nurse, and there are so many people who have those relationships, and they're the caregivers, and they're the person who can provide, and recovery is enhanced and is quicker when you have those people involved. I have another question for you, Andrea. What steps do people need to take to be able to get family met or obtain this? What criteria do they need to meet? You said some of it. Is there documentation that they need to provide? Who do they need to talk to? And more importantly, like in my experience, for me, I had people in the human resource department. They were hugely knowledgeable. It was a piece of cake. I mean, I did have to fill out papers. I did have to go to the doctor for a certification about the necessity. But if I had questions, I could just call Deb in HR and she would, walk me through it. So who are those people? And what steps if I'm wanting to apply, how do I do it?
Yeah. So there are two parts to applying for family and medical leave. And to your point, Meari, you should go to whoever is your HR person in your organization. The change in this law means that it now applies to one or more employers. And that's just not for the paid leave portion. That's family and medical leave. That's a significant change in the law. So there might not be an HR person where you are if you're in a 3-person organization or something smaller. But this is now going to be new territory for you. You do have to go and get what you described as your medical certification. So let's say that, and I'll just be giving my age away here, that at some point I'm going to need a joint replacement, right? For one that has stopped working as well as it used to. So now I'm going to have to go to my orthopedist, and that person will have to certify that I in fact do need that surgery. And I'll be bringing that back to my HR person. And they will then compare that to the list of qualifying reasons why I can take family and medical leave. And they'll also determine whether or not I personally qualify. And so next year they'll see, okay, getting surgery for a knee replacement is a serious health condition. And she's worked here 3 months or more, so she has job protection. So all those forms are filled out. And then the employer then says, okay, you just give me everything else that you need. You have the medical, you can take the time that you need, you're fine. But you may not have accrued enough time to be paid for all of that time. And that's when you send the employee to the paid leave authority. And then we will say, all right, you do have a qualifying condition. You have worked for your employer. You've earned enough money there because there are different qualifications in the statute. You've earned enough money to qualify for benefits. So we will certify you for benefits, and then you'll be able to receive your money. So it's a 2-part process. But once you get that, then you can go ahead and move forward. And it moves fairly quickly. We're not talking months and months. You can wrap this whole thing up if you've got all your documentation in less than 30 days. And then get your decision about your qualification for benefits and be on your way.
One question I have based on what you just said. So if I am working for an employer that has its own program and its own way of doing it, I go first to them, utilize whatever, they're probably unpaid, or I'm using my sick time. Then once I have exhausted my sick time or whatever, then I can go to the state Connecticut paid leave.
It depends on the employer. So some employers do in fact have that policy where when you apply for family and medical leave, they require you to exhaust whatever paid time off you have available. Some use a big bank, some have vacation, sick, and other types of leave. But what's important about this law, especially when it goes into effect next year, is that no matter what you have, an employer has to allow you to keep up to 2 weeks of your vacation time. They cannot compel you to exhaust all of your vacation time. So let's say that you had you had to go out for 8 weeks, and you had 6 weeks of time. 4 were sick and 2 were vacation. The employer could compel you to exhaust your vacation while you're sick, but it could not compel you to exhaust your vacation. You're entitled to keep those 2 weeks of vacation.
Oh,
And
good.
then you could come to the paid leave authority for the remainder of the time that you'd be away to seek that wage replacement.
Wow. So even though the benefits to Connecticut residents through the paid family and medical leave program won't be available until January 1st of 2022, the program is already, it's already working. It's already up and running in a lot of ways. Could you just really quickly touch on a couple of the important milestones that the program's already reached, and just share a little bit about what you and your terrific team have done during the past year and a half?
Sure. Well, when I started, it was March 2nd, and the whole world, shut down not long after that. So I have been working with a team. Well, first it was just me for a long time. There was me and one other person, and so we've been hiring staff. Our milestones include building a web portal, which I hope many people will go to, which is www.ctpaidleave.org, which has virtually everything you could want to know about paid leave there, and things that you can download and read and spend time really learning about the program. We then had to get all of the employers registered so that they could collect that 1/2 of 1% and contribute that to the paid leave trust fund. So all that you might imagine goes into standing up a trust fund, making sure that we've identified all of the employers that should be participating, gently or sometimes not so gently reminding those employers that haven't participated that they have a statutory obligation to do so. All of that was happening as well. So today we have over 119,000 employers who are registered with the paid leave program and who have made contributions on behalf of their employees by collecting that 0.5% and remitting it. We have about $205 million that we've collected from employees and workers and self-employed individuals throughout the state. And that is pretty much where we should be at this point. And then we have 2 quarters to go, where we would have sort of a buildup of a fund of a little over 400 million. That will be the start of what we will be using to pay benefits in 2022. And then this year, we've partnered with AFLAC so that we can actually pay out those benefits. So it is, everyone knows it from the duck, right? We're very familiar with the brand and what they do. And they were able really to stand up and create a very effective benefits administration process in less than 3 to 4 months, which isn't something that I think that we could have done in the time frame that the statute requires we be ready and available without having a really valuable partner like them. So we're ready to turn on the lights on December 1st, when people will be able to come in and start applying for benefits, because benefit payments can start as early as January 1 of 2022.
Great. So application can begin December 1st of 2021 for, oh, wow, that's
that's our goal. Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
And I know, we're recording this at the end of September,
Right.
and you have a series of webinars coming up over the next several weeks, leading up to these milestones, December 1st and January 1st. Can you tell us a little more about these webinars that you're offering?
Sure. So last year about this time, we offered a series of webinars just to teach people about family and medical leave, the registration process and the contribution process, and really what employers could expect. So now, fast forward a year later, that benefits are coming. We're actually doing the same thing, setting up our own series of webinars so that we can teach employers what to do when they get that knock on the door. And it's literally called, "Hey, do you have a minute?" Because we know that right when our staff comes up to us and they knock on the door, "Hey, do you have a minute?" It's probably something pretty significant. So that series of webinars will teach employers what to do when they get that knock. And then the conversation is about taking leave and what to do. Then there's another series of webinars that really will teach employers through the legalities of what can happen. And so we can hope that they just don't get themselves in trouble, because family medical leave can be quite complex. And there are a lot of employers who have had no experience in navigating these waters at all. So we're hoping to educate them on a really rudimentary basis so that they can at least have a sense of what to expect. And then the third series of webinars are for workers, or for the employees and self-employed and all the workers in the state, to answer the question that Meari asked me earlier. Well, what exactly do I do? I've been paying this 0.5%. It's gone into, this fund that I trust you, Andrea, that this fund exists. It does, right? It has the money in it. But how do I get my benefit when I'm ready to have my surgery, for us to expand our family, to take time off to care for someone? So that's the third series. And we have about 8 to 10 webinars in each of those series, and they're offered at different times of the day, so that people can access them when they're available. And they will all be recorded and on our YouTube channel as well. So if you can't attend live, you'll be able to access them and review them at your convenience.
How will workers know? How will it be announced or marketed?
Yeah, so we are going through a number of state agencies. One of them is the Department of Economic and Community Development. We're also partnering with the Department of Administrative Services. We're going through DCF. So every state department that we think touches families, that's the first place we're going to go. Then you'll start to hear about it soon. You'll see much more of me than you ever thought you would, right? On television and radio.
Oh, good.
And we'll start publishing it. And then there's some newspapers and radio we found is extremely effective. And so you'll start to see that schedule being published in different places. Those webinars for workers don't start until October, which is like a week and a half from now. But
I know.
Right, it went very quickly as I watched the leaves change on the trees for my home office. But yeah, they'll start to know. And of course, we'll share it with our terrific partners in AARP, so people will be able to get that information.
Terrific.
Yeah, and AARP is looking forward to partnering as well to make sure that we're reaching out to our members, in particular, so caregivers understand what this program can mean for them and their loved ones.
Right.
So wonderful. Andrea, thank you so much. This was a really informative conversation. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And I hope that everyone who's watching, this coffee and tea episode has a little bit of a better understanding about what Connecticut's paid family and medical leave program is all about and what it could mean for them personally or the people in their community. And thanks also to Meari Avery, our wonderful AARP volunteer co-host, for the conversation today. So we've covered all of our bases. One more time, Andrea, where can folks go to learn more about the program?
They can go to ctpaidleave.org. And we've just added 2 new features to that site. So there's an entire page there that will explain how to access your benefits. There's also a benefit calculator there. So you can get a really rough estimate of what your benefit might be based on how much you make and how frequently you're paid. And we also launched a small business portion of the website as well. It has a toolkit for businesses and a video that will help you explain the paid leave component of family and medical leave to your employees. So we're just continuing to try to hear what people are saying and reach out to them and provide as much information as possible to make navigating this very new law easier for everyone.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you again, Andrea, and thank you, Meari, and thanks to everyone who joined us, online for today's conversation. We hope to see everyone again here on Facebook Live in 2 weeks for another great conversation. Thank you again to our guest and co-host, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.